Hello, everybody, and welcome to our 90th episode, coming to you on the big, huge day around the entire world, Paddy's Day or St. Patrick's Day to be political correct. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about it today, because we had a huge scandal in Dublin. Now, if you know Dublin, if you've ever been there, you probably know about Temple Bar. So Temple Bar is the party mile in Dublin with loads of pubs where the tourists go, overpriced pints, but it's a lot of fun, a lot of Irish music, and obviously on St. Patrick's Day, it is packed. It's a lot of fun, and everybody drinks, let's say, a lot. And what happened? One of the pubs had outside the pub a huge, big statue of St. Patrick. And in one hand, St. Patrick was holding a pint of Guinness. And somebody complained that it was not correct that a saint is holding a pint of Guinness on the National Day of Drinking, because that's really what it has become. So they had to take the statue down, and the pub actually apologized by saying it was supposed to be a chalice. We think somebody painted it black in transition, which I don't know if that's true or not, but they immediately backpedaled, apologized, because I don't know. I think it was, I don't know how many people complained, maybe one, maybe two, I don't know, but it wasn't many. And I was thinking to myself, isn't that a bit hypocritical? On the day where everybody gets drunk, or let's say not everyone, but probably 60% of the population. And I'm just wondering, with that story, have we become too oversensitized? Or are we not sensitive enough? Because it is a saint, and I can understand it hurts people who are very religious. So the question is, where are we at with understanding each other or being oversensitive?
Well, I'm going to jump straight in and say we are so divided. Everything seems to be intended deliberately to be divisive, and people have more than willingly joined in with being offended. You know, Stephen Fry once put that post about people taking offence like it's a protected right, and it isn't a protected right. And you know, as we say in ecology, being offended is a dysregulated response to an uncomfortable truth. You know, saints were not all perfect. St. Patrick doesn't actually have the best reputation. The fact that he was holding a pint, I'm sure if he'd been around when Guinness was invented and other dark stouts are available, he probably would have drunk quite a bit of it. Because as you say, St. Patrick's Day spread around the world with the Irish, and there is a certain amount of banter and wittiness, you know, the crack, as they call it over there, that kind of expects people to be able to take this sort of thing. Sorry, Erica, you go ahead.
No, that's okay.
Actually, just to throw that in, actually, Erica, before we come to you, you actually have a point, Alec, because we know that beer was invented by the Egyptians, but we also know that beer was brought to Europe by the monks. So it was the monasteries who first of all brewed beer.
Yeah. So what instantly, and I said this, what comes to me is like, when the hell and where did we lose our sense of humor? Like, the bar owners were not intending to, were intentionally say, I'm going to put this statue up here and have him hold a pint to really piss people off. Like, that wasn't the intention. It's just, it's funny. Like, it's a sense of humor. It's a play on, this is the guy we're celebrating and this is how we do it. So why not have him join in and celebrate his own day as well, right? And to Alex's point, that's what I thought too. I'm like, I'm sure in his living time, he would partake in having a few drinks. Like, really, is it that offensive? I don't know. I mean, I think it's just funny. It's a sense of humor thing. I'm sad for us all as a society that our sense of humors have gone down the crapper in the way that they have. Like, we can't laugh at anything including ourselves. And when you can't laugh at yourself, like there's a real serious problem there. When you take yourself so serious that everything has to be a problem. Like, where's the line that we draw here? Where's the line? And I find myself feeling irritated. Shocking. I know, viewers, it's a shock to see that I'm irritated about something, but that the bar owners had to take it down, right? Like, it's like, this is their way of celebrating. Like, hi, it's a joke. Sorry you're offended, but we're still going to keep it there. Why do we, like, how do we stop this from feeling like now I have to change what I thought originally was just a joke, and now I have to take it down so that I don't ruffle the feathers of the whoever are getting irritated by it.
You know, I was going to suggest a new feature which we could do, which is like rant along with Erica or something like that, because there's no doubt that your rants are one of the most attractive feature of our channel. But you do raise a really good point. And Einstein said, don't trust somebody that isn't able to laugh at themselves. It shows an astonishing lack of self-awareness. So by becoming a society that doesn't look at ourselves and laugh at ourselves, I think we're actually just holding up a big sort of plaque and saying we've lost our self-awareness. And, you know, given that this is the inner lenses, it is probably really worth getting into what that means in terms of a lack of awareness, a lack of our embodied sense of ourselves, what we do, how we behave.
Yeah, I saw it a little bit like Erica, because now, in fairness, St. Patrick wouldn't have joined in drinking on his day because he was a teetotaler and he was really strict and very rule-keeping. And he would be horrified, absolutely horrified, to see what happened to his day, right? That it's literally just one big piss up in a lot of the cases. He would be horrified. So I saw that statue as an actually joke on ourselves. Look what we have done to his big day, because he wouldn't agree, but nobody cares, right? So everybody's out partying and drinking. And this is the point. You know, it wasn't an insult to St. Patrick. It's actually an eye-opener to us, what we have done to the day. Still, somebody said, no, this is offensive. And I'm not dismissing somebody's feeling, right? But the question really is, how do we deal with it? And how aware are we of those things? Because, you know, I did stand-up comedy for a long time, and a lot of my old stand-up friends say they have to be really careful what they're saying nowadays. Stand-ups have to be more politically correct these days, not to get in trouble or being cancelled, than some politicians. And I find this really weird, because they're stand-up comedians. They're taking the mickey out of everything, right? But they have to be so correct nowadays and so careful what they're saying. It has completely changed the whole atmosphere.
So what you just said makes it even funnier to me, that St. Patrick would be, shocked and appalled and probably would not be having that. It makes that statue even funnier in the satire and the irony of it all, like calling bullshit on all of what everybody claims, right? Which is when people get the most offended, is when you are calling out their bullshit, in either directly or overall. People don't like the truth, and especially it's like a big giant mirror looking at you with St. Patrick with a beer in his hand. I think that's what makes it even funnier to me. But again, you have to have some self-awareness to be able to say, "Oh shit, look at that. That's yeah. What have we done to this day?" Like take your feeling offended, and because it means something. So instead of being offended, take a look at, why am I being offended by this? Do I feel like, oh crap, they're calling me out on my shit right now because I'm about to walk into the bar and I just happened to notice the statue and I'm annoyed with it? Like, come on, it's even funnier to me now.
How long was the statue up before somebody found it offensive?
I'm not sure, but it can't be long.
Because I'm just curious, like, if it was there for years and then all of a sudden somebody came along and they were like, oh my God, how could that possibly be? Like,
No, it's not years. They just put it up for now this week or last week for the festival, so it's not there for long. Yeah.
Huh. And it was going to be taken down anyway after the festival, so it's kind of like that play on it. It's like, where did we get so serious? Can we not be light anymore? Do we have to watch every little thing that comes out? People have said many things to me, and I let it roll off my back. Right? I don't get all offended and crazy over certain things. You know, it's where somebody is in that moment, and I don't know. I find it kind of hard to believe that we're at that point where we can't joke around because you may get canceled. That's hard. That's hard. So where do we smile, laugh, giggle, and I mean, it's up for a day. It's not even there for years and years. It's for that festival. So I don't know it's hard. I don't know what happened to us.
I don't know. I really am curious Gary, to hear your point of view here, coming from the background that you have, right, and what your view is on St. Patrick being mocked according to, in the way that he, I don't know, I think it's funny, but I'm sure someone's going to call me some sort of name on our comments with this video again. So Gary, what is your view on this?
I'm going to be contrarian. This is going to be 4 against 1 here. And I don't want to talk about St. Patrick because I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is around making jokes and being offensive, and who are being offensive about. So early on, jokers and jesters were in the courts in order to take the mickey out of the royalty. They were there to bring royalty down, and to bring out all of that irritation from the plebs, from those who were being ruled. And the jokers and jesters could say anything they wanted, knowing that they were comedians. That's what they were there for, to laugh, to mock. That, though, is laughing and mocking at people in power. And I think doing that is absolutely fine. I love seeing people in power. I don't want to mention anybody in particular, but I'm thinking about America being absolutely crazy and blocking people from their accounts and stopping people being on television because they are being mocked because they cannot take it. That's somebody who is in massive power, who has the whole world looking at them and reacting to them and being scared of them and bowing down to them. That's one thing. However, what happens when a comedian who has a lot of people looking at him then starts to mock people with no power, those who are struggling, those who are entering the country because they are running away from persecution, from war, from famine, who are desperate? Is it okay for us to look at them and mock them? So I don't think it's quite so easy for us to generalize and say, oh, it's okay for comedian. Can't you take a joke? It was only a joke that I made, that I said about this particular race or that particular religion. You go, oh, can't you just take a joke? Oh, I think it's more complicated.
I think you raise a really interesting point, Gary. I use that phrase a lot. I'm going to have to come up with a different one. Anti-locution was evident. It was noted and noticeable with the persecution of the Jews as the Nazis came to power. We do see language used almost weaponized, again, particularly because it makes the news. I know it happens elsewhere, but it's big in the States at the moment, the way those in power talk about those that are disadvantaged, those that they don't think should be in the country. And I'm appalled that comedians can't say the things that because comedy has always been a way of poking fun at the problems in society and highlighting where we're getting things wrong. The fact that we hear things like, just trust the science. No, that isn't how science works. We doubt the science, we question the science until we're absolutely certain that we have a truth. Now we've come to this point where it's like, just trust people's feelings or just trust. And again, no, we need to be able to robustly interrogate anything that is coming up. And one of those things that is coming up is this almost accepted disgust of mass migration. Well, like you say, let's look at the reasons that the mass migration is happening and maybe poke some fun at the problems that are there so that they're in the public eye, so that people's consciousness is raised about them. Because one of the problems that all of this stuff causes for me is that we bury our heads. There's so much noise in the space that it just actually turns us off from looking at or looking for the really problematic areas. And I go back to what I said in the beginning about this deliberate divisiveness. If you separate people into small groups, like Brett said, where do we have a laugh? We do it in small groups under the radar, and as a result, we don't realise how many other people are actually saying, this isn't a horrendous problem. Why are we not dealing with what's causing the mass migration? And for that, #follow the money. Because that's what we should be looking at and really delving into and saying, why is this happening? If you don't want mass migration, what are we doing to these people's countries, either through climate change or through power games and oil games? Oh, Erica, move off of your perch. I've just had a rant.
I'll let you do it.
Really, yeah, sorry. Two things came up for me, which I think is really important for this conversation. First of all, so when we think about, okay, it's okay to mock the people in power, but not the people who are not, we already have made a judgment. Because I could turn around and say, well, look, when I get to power, become a politician, I don't want to be mocked out. I'm human too. Only because I hold a position of power doesn't give other people who are below me the right to mock me either. So this question, when is it okay and when is it not? Or as human beings, have we lost a certain amount of resilience? Right? That we say, okay, but we cannot mock the people who, and I'm not saying mocking them, right? But you know what I'm saying? It's almost like a double standard. If we look at it from that point of view, and I mean, looking at that in Ireland, the church was a massive power in this country. The church ran politics here for centuries and oppressed people, and that's the truth. As an institution, I'm not saying the religion now, but as an institution, the Catholic Church as an institution was horrendously powerful and used it really to hold people small. So then you could argue, well, let's mock them because they're in power. Let's mock the institution. You know what I'm saying? So where do we draw the line if we look from that point?
I don't think we're not saying don't mock the institutions. I mean, institutions have power, so they can be mocked. That they anywhere where there is a power base, it's there to be laughed at and mocked. I'm thinking about images from Christianity, and I may have mentioned this before actually in a podcast. There is a laughing Jesus in South America, which is laughing at those people who want to push down and oppress people, and it's the laughter that the power cannot stand, because you can degrade people, you can push them to one side, but you can't stop them mocking you. And so when you have this laughing figure, that destroys any power base. That's why people in power can't stand it. So we need things. In England, we have something called spitting image, and they're grotesque puppets of all sorts of powerful people. And generally, the politicians don't like it. The big religious figures, I think, probably struggle with it, even if they try to say that they don't. But that's different. That's different, Gabby, from mocking somebody who's never had a chance to become resilient, or maybe they're resilient just because they've survived and traveled across lands in order to find a life where they can live. And then you go, "Oh, what's the matter? I'm just laughing at you. It's only a joke." I think we need to be incredibly careful. Alec talked about antilocution. That means speaking against. Gordon Allport did a study after 1945 about how on earth Nazism got to the point it was allowed to rise to. And it started off with making jokes. And it wasn't just ordinary people making jokes about each other, which is great. We all do it in our community. We make jokes. We know where we stand. We make jokes about each other. We laugh. But it was when the government was making jokes about the Jews. Pictures, images, surprisingly, of pigs and that kind of thing. Ooh, there's no comparison now, is there, to what we're doing? And then it becomes separating, and then it becomes, physical violence, and then intimidation and physical violence, and eventually it led to extermination camps. Oh, come on, jokes can't do that. But at each stage, it made the next stage easier to do.
So the question is, there needs to be a discernment of, I'm almost lost for the words, but you know what comes to my mind? Tasteless and tasteful.
I think, there's a lot in what has just been shared. The fact that politics and the church have shared power and oppressed for so long. And this is one of those things that we're aware of, but we kind of all take as like, well, that's just the way it was. And that attitude of that's the way it was also allows for the attitude of that's the way it is, which speaks directly to what Gary was just saying. And the fact that we have all of this knowledge, we can see these things being replicated across the globe, and that each stage is being played out again. And a lot of people are aware of this. Gabby, you were talking about discernment, and I'm questioning whether people even have the knowledge or the interest or the awareness to understand what we're even talking about here, which is, the thinnest edge of the wedge of the truth of the politics and the machinations behind these things. Because people aren't generally particularly aware. And as a global population, we've proven time and time again that our interest is more towards cats versus cucumbers and people tripping up on things than it is to the political. And I'm not talking sort of partisan politics here. I'm talking the global big picture politics of how people remain in power and how the masses tend to be subdued. So there's an irony that what started off as a saint holding a pint has actually brought us to the fact, and I'm going to congratulate us all that we've had the depth of thought, because we've gone from that to this is a means of control. And this divisiveness that people being overly offended brings actually makes it easier to control us, because we're not speaking out as groups. It's so easy these days. If you raise a voice of dissent, you can be labelled as some ist or ism by other people. And as soon as that happens, regardless of the truth of it, nobody wants to be anywhere near you. Because people are so scared of being cancelled or, being an ist or an ism. And that's a problem, a really big problem for society. We are at the moment lemmings, not only walking, but running towards a cliff edge, because we won't stop and look at our own foolishness.
Can I also talk about cancel culture? Is that okay? So we talk, they're being cancelled, but who is cancelling? So if I get offended, I have a right, if I want, to complain. And whoever I'm complaining to has a right to say, I've heard your complaint. Thanks. Bye. I cannot stop them from carrying on doing what they're doing if it's within the law. So if for example, using this thing about, the pub in St. Patrick, that they did this statue, the pub had a right to say, we're leaving it up, thanks. Nobody's cancelled them. They've done it of their own free will and have taken down the statue. Nobody's forced them. Now, they may get a lot of complaints. You either take it or you leave it. Your choice.
They were actually ordered by the county council. So,
on what
again,
grounds?
But you have a point, Gary, because the county council could have said, look, it's Paddy Days, it's just a bit of fun. So the question now, when you talked, Gary, about the ones with the power, are they very swiftly reacting, cancelling people because they don't want to be seen in a certain way? So to the point of Alec, right? Where we're very quickly to say, I could get into trouble. I might be not re-elected again the next time into the council if I don't take action here.
If that's the case, Gabby, then they are going, the majority of opinion is against us. You might just say that's democracy. If they're afraid that most people are not going to like what's gone on, then yeah, they might get voted out, and so they take action. So I think we throw this phrase around, cancel culture, around far too easily without understanding what actually with each separate incident is going on. A comedian gets banned from the television. Well, for what reason? Is it because of a major merger going on that somebody higher up doesn't want, is putting pressure on? We need to ask more questions than just simply throwing away these phrases and thinking, that speaks for itself, because it doesn't.
And I think therein lies the problem. It's especially, we've been created in the last few years, moulded to have 40-second attention spans, and the number of people that will actually delve into a topic and find the truth of the matter, or what they are convinced and believe is the truth of the matter, is becoming smaller and smaller year by year, I think probably even day by day. I wonder at what point, Erica kind of alluded to this with, when did we lose our sense of humour, etc. When do we stand up and say, we do see, we do actually know what is going on, and the reasons for it going on, and we're not prepared to let it stand. It slid past once before because good people did nothing. is it going to happen again? And I suspect it could easily happen again, just because of the lack of awareness of the vast majority of people. Crikey, that was a gloomy one for our 90th. Just on the subject of cancel culture, those of you who put comments on Erica's thing, you're always just going to get thank you for your interest in our channel. So you can call her things and misunderstand what her rant was about, and the fact that she was actually deepening the conversation. That is your right. Feel free to be offended. We'll send you the address to write your complaint to in the comments. But we don't care. It's our channel. We are saying what we like, and if you don't
this is the point. This is exactly the point, though. Like, I might say things off the cuff and out of pocket and whatever, and I'm ranting and here and there. Nobody's saying you're entitled to feel however you want to feel. Go ahead and rant back if you want. That doesn't mean that just because I'm now going to curb the way that I continue to rant. I'm still going to say what I want to say, the way I need to say it, and you're going to feel however you want to feel. It's all welcome here. The comments are also welcome. Whatever it is that you need to say. But this is the point. This is exactly the point. Just because I don't like the statue of St. Patrick holding a Guinness doesn't mean that I am entitled to have it taken down immediately. You're allowed to be upset, but so is other people are still allowed to carry on the way that they are. That's the point. So take a hard look at yourself, at why am I getting my ass and my panties in a bunch about something? What is it saying about me? And what do I expect to happen because of that? We all need to lighten up and laugh at ourselves a little bit. I'm sure somebody's going to get pissed off with what I just said again. So that's all.
Well, actually, that's fine. We don't care because Brett just would love some comments. So they can be hateful, spiteful. We're not going to worry, but we would love comments, Brett in particular.
What I would love is that ask to be on the pod, because I would love to be able for you to understand me more deeply about what it is that I ranted that you didn't like, instead of being called an insufferable bitch. Come talk to me about it, and maybe you'll understand what I was saying and continue to listen to the podcast to hear what I said after that. So,
right. See you later, pals.